Joining me now is Chas West of the band Westbound. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you, Chris. It's really nice to chat with you also.
Now, whenever I talk to musicians, I always like to start with how much music was a part of their life. Was it always around when they were a kid? Did they have family that were musicians? Sometimes it's just having one of those little tiny toy pianos or like a
Right.
little like plastic ukulele or something. So, how much was music a part of your life? Just growing up.
Well, it was. My parents know they were not musicians at all, but I'm also adopted. So I found out later on that my birth mother was actually an opera singer
Oh,
and a
wow.
music teacher. And that's where it came from. So, because I was wondering, my dad was a serious businessman and my mom was just a great woman. And, she loved music and loved theater and acting and everything. So she always encouraged it. But yeah, it wasn't in my genetic makeup as far as I knew. Except for the fact, like I said, I'm adopted. So
Sure, yeah.
that's where it came from. Yeah, at a very young age.
And what were some of the bands, musicians that you started listening to, where like sort of you got the bug, as it was. What were you like
Right.
most into when you were a kid?
When I was really young, I remember my mom loved the Beatles,
Sure.
obviously. And I started listening to that, and just the melodies and the harmonies hit me immediately. I remember that really, really young, And then after that, it was obviously, Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Queen and Van Halen and
Yeah.
as you got old, right? And it just continued on from there. The Who, loved them too. I remember seeing them, and it was just like, that's what I want to do. It just was like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Was there somebody you saw? Was it Robert Plant or Steven Tyler? Was it like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly what I want to do?
Well, yeah, kind of. It's
Yeah.
it's no, I was a little too young to see Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
It's funny because playing with Jason for years,
Yeah.
I try, right, honestly. And was supposed to see him. I was about, what, 11 years old, 1980. And then, of course, Bonzo passed 15
Yeah.
years later. I'm in a band with his son. So, it's just kind of a irony there, and how everything comes full circle. The first rock concert that I actually saw was The Who. And it's funny because I've hung out with Roger and I told him this story. And I was just like, yes, I can do that. I was a kid, and then the next day where we lived, we had very high ceilings, and I had my mic, and I'm like swinging it in the living room, trying to catch it, and I knocked out one of my mom's lamps,
Yeah.
She wasn't very happy, but
Yeah.
then years later, it's like when I had some success, I remember I bought her a new set of lamps and I said, here, Mom, this is to make up for when I was 12 years old and,
Yeah.
and did this. So, yeah.
Yeah, to your mom, it was like, you might think you can do that, but if you're gonna do
Right.
it, you do it outside.
Oh, I've gotten good at it now, but it's like, yeah, when you're first trying it, no, it's whoa,
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of times when you see singers that have a microphone with the cord on it, you almost
Right,
feel like it's probably because they're going to want to swing it at some point, because
right,
obviously you don't need the cord anymore.
right,
But it's always fun. I'm always surprised by like a stand-up comedian with the cord. I'm like, what do you do? You're just walking around the stage, like
right. I
you're
like
gonna.
it though. I like
No,
it.
I
It's
could
kind
see it.
of
Yeah,
it's like a prop too, I
yeah,
like the chord itself. And yes, I do have a tendency, and I've gotten good at it over the years,
yeah.
without overdoing it. I mean, I knocked out a guitar player or two in the early days.
But you know what? One or two of them might have had it coming, so it's all
Yeah,
right.
exactly. I was like, bastard. All right.
Yeah.
Boom. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There you
how
go.
do you reference the fact that you played with Jason Bonham? How did that come about? Did you get to know him, or did you just audition? How did you end up
Well, I had
working with
met
Jason?
him. I had met him once before, but I really didn't get to know him. We hung out, and our personalities gelled, and the chemistry was there. But yeah, like hundreds of other vocalists at the time. I sent in a demo, a CD and everything. And I heard back, I couldn't believe it. I got some, response, and it was like, oh, well, we really like your voice and we'd like you, why don't you come? Let's see if I can remember. Yeah, it was first meet with the managers. So it was Phil Carson. I don't know if you know his resume, but I mean, just to start off with, he signed AC/DC when he was at Atlantic Records in London. Okay.
Yeah. So it almost doesn't matter what he did after that.
I mean, he was working at Atlantic in London in the 70s. He was the A&R guy for Led Zeppelin. Okay. That's how he knew Jason since he was 2 years old. So, so he says, why don't you come meet with me? And I was like, okay. So I met with him, and he said, we want a guy that, could do some Zepp too, but we also want a guy that, can write. And here's some stuff they've been working on. And so then I went back and I was immediately inspired. In fact, I remember him bringing me into a boardroom and playing me the stuff. And I just had ideas, melody ideas, and started singing immediately. And he walked in and he's like, and I go, this is great. I love it. I feel it, And, he's like, okay, well, go back, go home and record some ideas, record some vocals and some melodies and some lyrics. And then get back to me. And I was so inspired that I was done within about 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah. And he was even like, oh, you're done? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I was just so energized. And I felt the inspiration and the chemistry. So, and musically at that point, I didn't really know the other guys yet. And then he said, you know what? He goes, I feel comfortable enough with you. The band's in town now, so why don't I give you their phone number and see if you can hook up with them? Because of the fact he had met me, he was like, okay, I know he's not some derelict off the street. So, right. So, and eventually after many phone calls, I got through. At first it was the guitarist, and we met, and I had recorded some other stuff with another band that I was with at the time, and he loved it. And then Jason, I'll never forget this. He was at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and he said, and he goes, hold on, Jason. And I hear him on the other phone. I hear him go, yeah, he sounds really good. Yeah. Like I was saying, is he cool? It was like, he's cool. It was like that, right? And then he's like, okay, so I know what Jace was saying. I found out later, but I put two and two together even hearing it. It's like, okay, well, come pick me up at the Rainbow, but make sure if you're going to bring him, I want to make sure he's cool and, we're not wasting our time and all that kind of thing. And so, he gave me the thumbs up, and we met, and our chemistry immediately, I mean, we got on right away. Sense of humor and everything. And I remember we went to a jam that night. Friends of mine were doing it, and it was like a Sunday night. And I said, he's like, well, what's going on? Anything going on? I went, well, there's my friends that do this jam. At that time, I mean, honestly, it was James Kotak on drums. It was Sean McNabb on bass, Mitch Perry on guitar. And I don't know, I think there was a keyboard player too. But, all these guys were pros, and I was a nobody kid still, And I walked in, I'll never forget, I walked in with Jason Bonham, and I saw especially Kotak's face. He was just like, he knew me. I was the kid, but they'd already done something, And then the funniest thing was like, well, that was 5 years later, we were on tour with Scorpions in South America. And James, of course, was the drummer. So, so once again, everything coming full circle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from reading the notes about Westbound, which we'll talk more about in a moment, that your producer Roy Z, I guess you also met while you were on tour in South America. So I guess Roy was with Bruce Dickinson's solo band.
That is correct. You got it.
Yeah. So talk about getting to know him. And I mean, obviously he was playing with Bruce. So, he was, you knew he was going to be a pro. So that helps.
Exactly. And I met Bruce first because I was hanging with Jason, and Jason had met him, and we're hanging in the lounge of the hotel in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And then that's how and I realized, and I met Z, I call him Z. and we were the younger ones that, hadn't been doing this for years. We were like kids in a candy store, playing to 50 to 100,000 people. First time I'd ever played to that many people. And I don't know if it was the first time for him, but, maybe relatively the first time. And we were the kids that were just like, yeah, on an ultimate high, and just wanted to keep that going. And we ended up, because I remember the bars in South America were open all night long, and we were the ones that went out, and they'd have some local bands, sometimes covers, and we'd get up and jam. It was that kind of thing. And that's how we got to know each other. And then I don't think he even knew that I was living in LA at the time until later on. Because I was back and forth in England and there, and yeah, and that's we stayed in touch, and eventually, we would just hang out sometimes, jam here and there, and because it was a whole South American tour. But even after that in LA, then I didn't see him for a year or so, and he's like, "Hey, got this Tribe of Gypsies record, and you want to make it a little more universal? Would you be into doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah. Sure. Let's get together and write. Let's see how it goes."
So you did Tribe of Gypsies with him, and
correct.
So where does the Westbound come about? Which I understand that's for Frontiers Records. So,
that was Frontiers. Yeah, that's years later. Actually,
okay.
Westbound came about because I'd done a record called Resurrection Kings, or a band, excuse me, with Vinny Appice and Craig Goldie from Dio, and Sean McNabb was on bass, and the president of the label, Serafino, basically contacted me and said, "I love your voice, I love your ideas, writing ideas, melodies, lyrics. I'd like to do something with you." And it was really cool, the timing, because I was looking for a way to do my own thing, because I'd been the hired singer for so many bands, and Resurrection Kings was great. And we did a few shows, but of course, everybody was busy doing other things. Vinny was doing Last in Line. He had just started that. And that's when Jimmy, the late, great Jimmy Bain was still alive. Yeah. And Goldie was doing Dio Disciples. And McNabb, I think, at that point was doing Dokken. And I had, I was back and forth with Jakey Lee. And then sometimes when Oni and George Lynch would have a, falling out, then I would come back in the Lunch Mob again, I did that a few times. And then, but in the back of my mind, it was always I'd love to do my own thing, but I'd need the vehicle to be able to do that, and the opportunity, which Serafino presented me with. And, that's how Westbound Volume 1 came about, because he said, "Well, I'd like you to work with a writer producer. Is there anybody you have in mind?" And I had a few guys in mind, and Jose was, one of the first ones. And I rang him up, and he was like, "Absolutely, I'm in. Done deal." Because we knew we could write together, because we'd done it with Tribe of Gypsies. So, and then, we did the record. I brought my bro, Dave Chili Moreno. He also plays with Puddle of Mud. And I've known him for many, many years. And, the first song I think we wrote was Dance of Life. It was a little room. And within a half hour, we had the majority, the meat of the song, I should say. And then I just went back and just changed a few things here and there as far as lyrics. But, the majority of it was done then. And then, of course, I realized, well, I've got a vehicle here, and can make this a brand and my own thing. So I want to take this further than just being a project, or record where we only do so I want a real band. And so I had Z, I had Dave, and then I was, very, particular. I knew what I needed. And I found Jimmy Burkhardt, the guitarist, through my friend Stephen McGrath, who was the bassist for Billy Idol. And I remember the first time I saw him play, I was just like, this guy's great. How come he hasn't been snatched up by anybody, Yeah. And, I'm like, oh, he must be difficult. He must be, hard to work with, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, you think, what's going on? This guy's like Jimmy Page, meets Joe Perry, meets Eddie Van Halen, exactly what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Or I know what I need for Westbound to make it work. And, and he's the nicest, sweetest guy in the world, and great sense of humor and no issues. And I'm like, wow, thank you, universe. So, and then Jason Cornwell, I had done another project with him. It didn't do that well, but we got to know each other, and we both realized, this is beneath us. But, I liked him, and he was a pro, and he went to Berkeley School of Music with my bro Tish, Brian Tishy, who's also on the record, and I was just like, I like this guy. And, so I kept him in mind, and he was like, I'm in, because I wanted guys that made it a priority, right? Because it was the first time that I was in the driver's seat, and I was like, I don't want to go through what I went through with Resurrection Kings. So, because this time it's my thing. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there we go. Oh, the newest guy that I added, a guy named T-Bone. He used to be in the band Government Mule, and he plays keys and second guitar. This is for touring. He's not on the record, but he came in later. And I was like, okay, now I feel like I really have a cohesive unit, a real band that we can really, do well. And we started getting out there in 2019, and
that was actually the next thing that I was going to ask you. Is that so you got it together, you got the band together, you want to go out and do live shows, and you're all ready. And you did some, and then of course 2020 it became very difficult to do live shows.
Everything got
and
shut
for
down.
A while impossible. So talk a little bit about that part, sort of that setback, and what you did during the at least the initial part of when we were all locked down and really not going out doing much anything.
Nothing. Exactly right. I mean, it happened. In fact, our first show was supposed to start because I was like, great, 2019, we made an impact, we made some noise, promoters and club owners, and I have another booking agent that wants to take us on, who is good, and then all of us, the first show was supposed to be the Viper Room in LA in April. And then, of course, we know what happened in March, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like all of us were like, well, how long is this going to last? Most of us at that time, I was thinking 3 to 6 months, maybe. That's what I was, honestly. Obviously it didn't turn out that way.
It was a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, really, pretty much. So, in fact, that Viper Room show we were supposed to do got postponed. That was the only show besides a little warm-up thing I did at my friend's place up in Mammoth Mountain. That was also a little bit a way of getting us together and a little holiday, away from them, like reconvening and like in a beautiful area, right? So we were able to do that at the end of last year, and that was it. And I'm talking, recorded. We wrote, recorded, and I even did another Resurrection Kings record.
Okay.
We did. There's another one that came out. Yeah. But we wrote some songs and did some demos, and tried to do a few things, and there was a lot of things were canceled, postponed. Yeah. And then the funniest thing is some of the East Coast shows that were postponed, we were like, I rescheduled them for January this past year because promoters were into it and NAMM wasn't going to happen. So I thought, all right, let's do it then. Sure enough, we do one show in New England, and a blizzard comes in. Right?
No.
Yeah, right. After waiting all this time, and it's been postponed twice, shows that were booked. Yeah, a blizzard hits. So we were able to do one show, and then we're stuck in 3 feet of snow in New England, in Massachusetts. We made the best of it. We had fun, but it was just like, oh my God, the old saying, what can go wrong will go wrong. It's like, really? After waiting this long? So, that's kind of what some of the shows that we're doing next week, right? Is to make up for that.
And the shows next week are back on the East Coast. The shows,
yes,
no doubt, yeah,
correct.
And so the volume one is still what's out, and I wanted to
Right.
talk to you a little bit about the song "Never Surrender," which our audio audience will hear after you and I are done talking. They'll hear a
Okay.
nice chunk of it, which I listened to the song a bunch of times over the last week. I think it's great, and it's
Thank you.
it's and I mean this is the highest compliment. It has a very Dio, both Ronnie and the band sound to me, and
Yeah.
I thought it definitely not sounding derivative at all, but I was just like, oh man, it gives me that feel. You know what I mean? This is great, and so I look forward to hearing more. Talk a little bit about what where people can find it, and all that stuff. The
Okay.
socials and
Well,
everything, so everybody
first
can
off,
find you
that's a
guys.
huge compliment because Ronnie was a mentor of mine. I met him in South America also because it was Bonham, Dio, Bruce Dickinson Band, and Scorpions. And I really got to know him, and he really kind of took me under his wing. He found out from Jeff Pilson, the bassist, that I lived in LA, and he like gave me his phone number.
Oh
So
wow.
I will always be, eternally really grateful to the time and the time that he spent with me and the advice and things that he gave me. It meant a lot. So I want to say that first. Basically, go to westboundofficial.com, and that has all the shows listed that we have coming up on this tour. And there'll be quite a bit more, for the rest of the year, coming later in the year, excuse me. And the videos are on there. That's the first single was Never Surrender. The second one, Dance of Life. And, there's some other songs that we're doing a re-release. Mainly, that's why I got Jody Best and Best Bet Promotions, is because it's like starting all over again after, being shut down. It's making an impact and then going, yeah, all right, it's going to even be better next year. And then everything stops, and people's attention span these days sometimes, is even before the pandemic, it wasn't that long. And so after a
Yeah,
year
I
and a
mean
half,
I
you know
mean
what I mean?
you have a lot of musicians who, they had albums ready to come out,
Right,
during the part of the pandemic, and then, also unfortunately some that came out in like early 2020 that they never got to tour. And
right.
then it's like, what do? Do you put out a new
I have a
album?
few
Do you
friends of mine like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of, in large, well-established bands, that just
yeah,
like, what do
yeah.
we do? Do we put
Oh,
out
I
another
know.
album? Do we try to, I guess a lot of times the move is like, well, I guess we could put out a deluxe edition of the old album
Right,
with a couple of
right,
extra songs to remind people. But yeah, because you don't want to, if you have another album, it's like, yeah, we don't need to burn through that right away.
right.
So yeah, I think it's
So that's why I
obviously that was
decided
tough
to
to
do
do. Yeah, go ahead.
kind
Sorry.
of do a re-release. That's okay. That's why I decided, like, before we do, yes, there'll be a volume two probably next year, and we got some songs we've been working on writing, and Z and I, we get together for a few hours and we can have a few songs easily. But even Jimmy's now involved in the writing, and T-Bone, and Jason. So yeah, but I was like, well, this is kind of like starting all over again. So why don't
Yeah.
we, I think we need some help, which is why I brought Jody Best in.
Yeah, and
Who's been
for our audience, Jody is a great publicist. She works with
amazing.
a lot of musicians you see me talk to are people that
Right,
Jody is kind enough to send our
right.
way, and she's tireless, I would say, because
Agreed, agreed.
she works very hard for everybody
Yes,
who works for her, and I get
she
to
does.
and she didn't slow down during the pandemic. I started to do a
No,
lot of these kind of conversations just like I'm having with you right now down here in the
surely.
basement, and
Right,
just
right, yeah.
talking rock and all that. I glanced at your tour dates and I saw that you one of the many shows that you have coming up is in Plymouth, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and just something to think about if you were to do like a live digital release from there. You could call it Plymouth Rocks, but you know what? That's up to you. You don't have to. Just as something that I
I
thought
like
of.
it.
The
Put
band
on
could stand.
bumps.
The
All
band
right.
could stand with the Plymouth Rock for a photo shoot.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
It
It's
caught my eye because I went there once and I was like, oh, this is
Oh,
the
I've
rock.
been there a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm like,
know.
where's the rest of it? I'm like, oh, it's
Where's the
this.
rest of it?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
did they show you? Wait, do you know the story though? There's the original one that all the
I didn't know.
locals tell you. And
Yeah.
it's this giant rock in the middle of the ocean, like, or like, you know, off the beach, and you can see it, and there's a giant X on it, and they're saying that's the original.
That's
The
the real
locals,
rock.
yeah, I found this out from the locals like a few years ago. Yep, that's the real rock.
Wow.
Of course, it didn't work to have a whole museum and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, for the tourists, so they moved it. But
Oh,
that's what I've heard.
I mean,
Whether it's true or
it's funny
not, who
too, because
knows?
when I was
You
in
know?
college, I dated a girl from Plymouth, Massachusetts. I went home with her once. I saw the rock. She did not give me the inside. She must not have liked me enough. And you know what? We weren't together enough long. So I didn't deserve the inside scoop. So
You hadn't worked your way up to that yet.
It's only true and trusted people that get it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Chaz, I look forward to seeing some more gigs. You you guys are all based in Los Angeles, right? So,
yeah. Well, actually, Jason, the bassist, that's why I mentioned Plymouth. He has a place there too, so he's kind of back and forth, which is how I met a lot of the locals and found out the stories there.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's like the secret handshake. You know,
exactly.
Like, he's okay.
Well, like he's okay. He's in now. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Show him the real rock.
Yeah. No, honestly, it was funny. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That would be it'd be like if you go to Philadelphia and it's like, oh, hey, do you want to see the real
Liberty Bell?
Right. It's like tiny, and it's like the back.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, it's pretty funny, but it's cool, you know, because we have a home base there now because of that.
Yeah.
So
westboundofficial.com, that seems like your one-stop shop, and I'm sure people can check out. You mentioned the videos, Never Surrenders, the current one, and they'll be able to find all that and find you guys. I mean, it's look, you hear a lot about bands have to postpone shows and cancel and reschedule, but the fact that for the most part, this is a good summer where there's a lot of choices to have, and it's great to see, so much music is out there, so much live music is happening, big shows. You mentioned at the beginning the Beatles, and like about a month ago I saw Paul McCartney. He just turned 80.
I know. I'm sad. Sir Paul McCartney. I know.
Yes, sir. Sorry, you're right.
My mom was
Paul
English,
McCartney.
so I learned. I know.
Exactly. Yeah, he's Sir Paul.
Etiquette.
And
right.
and you're just like, and it was one of those things. I was at the show. I'm like, all right, what is he, 74? And I look it up. I'm like,
80.
Wait, he was 80. And so
and still singing "Maybe I'm Amazed" and hitting those high notes. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So well, may we all be amazed by the time that we're 80 years old.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Gives me hope.
Yeah. Well, Chaz, it was great chatting with you. Have a great time on the road, especially in Plymouth.
Thank you. And
I look forward to hearing more music.
I'll send you a picture of the real Plymouth Rock.
Do it.
What I was told by Jason and the locals. So
right, exactly. And then we'll educate people on the real Plymouth Rock.
There you go.
Yeah. And I'll make sure that Jody keeps me in the loop for anything else you guys have going on, especially when you're back here, because I'm in LA now. So anytime you're back here in town,
cool.
Yeah, so
we'll have to get together and have a cocktail.
Next time you guys are at the Whiskey or whatever.
Yeah, or the Rainbow. Yeah. We just played the Whiskey. That's where we started. Sure.
See, I just missed it. See,
yeah.
That's on me for not paying enough attention.
My old hunting grounds, I mean. Very well. So
yeah, the Whiskey is great. It's I've seen some truly memorable shows and a couple that I might not actually remember, but the shows were good.
That means you had fun though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I had fun.
Exactly.
And just walking around the Rainbow is always fun. It's a great little stretch of it.
My picture's on 2 walls.
Okay.
On 2 walls at the Rainbow, opposite Rainbow Bar and Grill, with Vinny Appice, the late great Jimmy Bain, and Jeff Pilson and Carlos Cavazzo. Yes.
Yeah. Now, did you ever have the conversation with Vinny why he and his brother pronounced their last names?
Yes, we have. I've made jokes with that many times.
It's Carmine Appice and Vinny Appice.
Right, Vinny Appice, right. And that's all right. His other brother, their older brother, or maybe just a little bit younger than Carmine, I don't remember, but I met him once. He goes, he pronounces it Apice. I'll remember
see
this.
that.
I'll never forget this. Yeah.
I think he's just putting everybody on now.
Yeah,
He's like, oh,
exactly.
watch this. I'm gonna
He's
go to
just,
Christmas.
he's just fucking with his brothers. Like, oh yeah, you guys think you're the rock star. Yeah, right.
Well,
So,
Chaz, it was great chatting with you. As I said
you
before,
too.
Westbound official. Find the song "Never Surrender," and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
You too, my friend. All the
All
best.
right.
Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
All right.